I sent my parents $200 every month so they could rest in the Georgia farmhouse I bought for them. For 6 years, my brother sent pictures of my father smiling on the porch and my mother standing beside flowers in the garden. For 6 years, he told me they were safe. Then I flew down without warning and found my sick father dragging feed sacks in the heat while my mother washed blankets by hand behind the house. The money was gone, their bedroom was in the basement, and my sister-in-law was sitting upstairs under a ceiling fan, drinking iced tea beside shopping bags paid for with my sacrifice. My name is Rachel Bennett, and sacrifice had always been the language my family understood best. Dad repaired buses for the county. Mom cleaned offices at night. They paid for my engineering degree, one overtime shift at a time, and never once told me how close they came to losing the house where David and I grew up. When my first real job brought me to Chicago, I promised I would return the gift. I worked for a construction firm during the day and reviewed structural plans freelance at night. I ate noodles, bought coats secondhand, and lived beneath a family whose washing machine shook dust from my ceiling every Tuesday. Each month, I sent $200 to an account David managed for our parents. I told myself the exhaustion was temporary. The basement walls sweated in winter, and the radiators clanged like someone kicking pipes in the dark. I learned which grocery stores discounted produce after 9. I stretched one roasted chicken into 4 meals and pretended the 8 behind my eyes was ambition instead of burnout. Whenever I thought about stopping, I pictured Dad sitting in sunlight and Mom kneeling beside tomato plants. That image kept me obedient to every transfer. The Georgia farmhouse was supposed to be the reward. I found it online after Dad's heart surgery. 1 story, wide doors, a bedroom overlooking peach trees. Enough land for Mom's garden without so much that maintenance became a burden. I supplied the down payment, paid the mortgage, and placed the deed in a trust naming my parents as lifetime residents. David volunteered to live nearby and coordinate care. At first, he sent photographs. Dad on the porch with coffee. Mom beside a new raised garden. Brittany arranging flowers in the kitchen. The pictures grew less frequent, but the requests for money grew larger. A new mobility ramp, cardiac rehabilitation, roof repairs after a storm, a part-time caregiver who needed to be paid in cash. Whenever I asked for receipts, David sounded wounded. They're our parents, Rachel. Do you want me helping them or running an accounting department? Shame did the rest. David knew exactly where to press. He had stayed close, he reminded me. He answered the late night calls. He knew which pharmacy had Dad's medication and which chair helped Mom's back. I was the daughter far away with a spreadsheet, so I turned suspicion back on myself. Maybe love was not supposed to ask for invoices. Maybe trust meant swallowing the numbers that did not make sense. I apologized every time. There were warning signs. Mom stopped answering video calls and said the internet was unreliable. Dad's voice became quieter. On my birthday, he left a message that ended with, "You work too hard for us." Then the recording cut off as if someone had taken the phone from him. I booked the flight 2 days later and told no one. That secrecy felt wrong at first. Families are supposed to announce visits, coordinate rides, ask what dessert to bring. But every time I imagined calling David, I heard Dad's birthday message cutting off mid-sentence. I heard Mom's new habit of saying everything was fine too quickly. So I bought the cheapest ticket, packed one carry-on, and spent the flight staring at cloud cover while my stomach tightened with every mile south. Then one weekend, after years without a proper break, I decided to surprise them with a visit. What I found changed everything. The farmhouse looked beautiful from a distance, exactly as I remembered. But as I walked closer, the picture-perfect image began to fall apart. My father, who struggled with serious health issues, was outside under the hot afternoon sun doing exhausting chores. Nearby, my mother was washing heavy blankets by hand. Neither looked comfortable. Neither looked cared for. Both looked tired in ways I had never imagined. Dad was dragging a feed sack toward the barn. His cardiologist had forbidden lifting more than 15 pounds. The sack weighed at least 40. Mom's hands were red from detergent, and the old wooden washboard in front of her belonged in an antique shop, not beside a house with 2 modern washing machines. I stayed behind the hedgerow and watched. Brittany sat beneath a ceiling fan with her mother, Linda. Shopping bags from Atlanta boutiques surrounded their chairs. A sparkling sport utility vehicle I had never seen stood in the drive. "Thomas, the south fence still isn't finished," Brittany called. Dad stopped to catch his breath. "I'll do it after I rest." She sighed loudly. "Rachel sends money because she thinks you two need help. The least you can do is contribute." Linda laughed into her iced tea. "Retirement has made them lazy." My mother heard. Her shoulders folded inward. But she kept scrubbing. I wanted to run across the yard. Instead, I took out my phone and recorded. 6 years reviewing construction failures had taught me that outrage identifies damage. Evidence shows who caused it. I walked around the property first. The mobility ramp existed only as lumber stacked beneath a tarp. The roof had no recent repairs. The barn was filled with furniture still carrying store tags. Through an open window, I saw 3 bedrooms remodeled into suites. One belonged to Brittany and David. One was decorated for Linda. My parents' room had been moved to the unfinished basement. The new furniture had tags from the same stores, listed on the statements David called medical supply vendors. A leather recliner cost more than 3 months of Dad's prescriptions. In the garage, a boxed espresso machine sat beside cases of imported wine. Beside them was a walker with one missing rubber foot, the kind of tiny defect that can turn a hallway into a fall. Their comfort was curated. My parents' safety had been improvised. Then I saw the camera above the basement stairs. It was small, black, and angled downward, not toward the doors or windows, but toward the steps where my parents came and went. That detail told me more than the dirty blankets. Cameras for safety watch entrances. Cameras for control watch people. I stood beneath the pecan tree with my phone in my hand, and the warm afternoon suddenly felt colder than my Chicago apartment had ever been. This was not neglect that happened while David was overwhelmed. It was a system. I called Aunt Marianne, Mom's sister, from behind the barn. She began crying before I finished describing the yard. She had tried visiting twice. Brittany told her dad was contagious after a hospital stay and later claimed my parents had traveled. Marianne had received short text messages from Mom's phone, but the language never sounded like her. My second call went to the attorney who created the trust. My third went to Adult Protective Services. The attorney told me the deed was safe, but the household account was not. David held financial power of attorney because I had signed the appointment during Dad's surgery. "Can it be revoked?" I asked. "By your parents, if they have capacity, or by emergency court order if there is exploitation." I looked at my father struggling with the sack. "Prepare both." Meanwhile, on the shaded porch, Brittany and her mother relaxed with iced drinks and shopping bags from luxury stores. As I stood there in shock, I heard Brittany criticize my father for stopping to catch his breath. That was the moment I realized something was terribly wrong. Years of trust suddenly felt misplaced. Years of sacrifice suddenly demanded answers. I quietly stepped forward and began putting the pieces together. The money I had been sending for medical expenses and daily care seemed to have been supporting a very different lifestyle. The more I looked, the clearer the situation became. When Brittany finally noticed me, she barely recognized who I was. She assumed I was a stranger and ordered me off the property. "Private property," she called. "You need to leave." I stepped into the sun. Dad dropped the sack. Mom said my name like a prayer. Brittany's face changed slowly. She had met me only twice, both times when I was exhausted and dressed for travel. The woman standing in her yard now wore muddy boots and held a phone pointed directly at her. "Rachel?" she said. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I wanted to see the retirement I've been paying for." Linda gathered the shopping bags with sudden urgency. Brittany blocked the front door and said my parents were confused, that Dad insisted on working because inactivity depressed him, that Mom preferred washing blankets outside. Dad looked at her. "You disconnected the machines." The sentence was quiet, but it ended her performance. Until then, Brittany had been playing the role of the overwhelmed caregiver, patient smile, tired voice, tragic little shake of the head. My father's words cut straight through it. "You disconnected the machines, not they broke. Not we were waiting on repairs, you." A subject, a verb, and a whole system of cruelty standing naked in the yard. Mom crossed the yard and held me. I felt every rib through her blouse. She whispered that David kept their bank cards and gave them $40 each week. When Dad protested, Brittany threatened to move them into separate nursing homes and sell the farmhouse. She said the house belongs to David now. Mom told me. I looked at Brittany. Did you read the trust? Her eyes flicked toward the porch. She had not. Instead of arguing, I opened my phone. Within minutes, I reviewed the financial accounts, removed unauthorized access, and secured every resource connected to my parents' care. The bank's fraud officer joined by video while my attorney filed the emergency notice. We froze the household account after identifying transfers to the dealership that sold Brittany's vehicle, luxury retailers, a cosmetic surgeon, and Linda's personal credit cards. The supposed caregiver was a company registered to Linda's address. It had received $96,000 and employed no one. The fraud officer kept his voice neutral, but even he paused when the caregiver payments appeared. $96,000 in care that had never touched my parents. $96,000 while Mom washed blankets until her knuckles cracked. $96,000 while Dad rationed pain medication because Brittany said refills were expensive. I wrote the number on a napkin and underlined it until the paper tore. David arrived 20 minutes later in a new pickup truck. He stepped out smiling, ready to hug me, until he saw the county social worker speaking with Mom. "You went through the accounts?" he demanded. "The accounts I fund." He lowered his voice. "We can explain this privately." That sentence told me he had learned the same lesson as Brittany. Secrecy was their safest room. I kept my phone recording. David claimed the vehicle was necessary for transporting Dad, though Dad had never ridden in it. He called Linda's payments wages for round-the-clock care. Linda had spent the afternoon drinking, while my mother hauled wet blankets. Then the social worker asked to inspect my parents' bedroom. Brittany refused. The sheriff's deputy, who arrived with Adult Protective Services, explained that refusal would be documented, and the court could authorize entry. Dad walked to the basement door, took a key from beneath his shirt, and unlocked it himself. The room smelled of damp concrete. 2 narrow beds stood beside the furnace. Prescription bottles were scattered in a plastic crate. The only window was too small for an adult to use in an emergency. Upstairs, the 3 renovated bedrooms had private bathrooms and televisions. Mom had tried to make the basement gentle. A faded quilt covered her bed. Dad's county bus driver cap hung on a nail. On a plastic table sat the framed photograph I had mailed after closing day. The one of all 4 of us smiling in front of the farmhouse. The glass was cracked. Seeing that picture down there hurt worse than the damp air, because it proved they had carried the dream underground with them. David stared at the floor. "It was temporary," he said. Mom answered before I could. 14 months is not temporary. The deputy photographed everything. When Brittany realized the house could not be sold without my parents' consent, and the trustees' approval, anger replaced charm. She said she and David had earned the property by providing care. Dad laughed once, a dry and broken sound. "You charged my daughter for care," he said, then charged us for being cared for. By sunset, David, Brittany, and Linda had been ordered to leave pending the emergency hearing. Linda tried carrying the shopping bags out. The fraud officer instructed the deputy that purchases made with the frozen account might be evidence. She left with only her purse. Brittany screamed when the deputy told her to set down a handbag with the receipt still inside. She said it was humiliating. Mom was standing in the doorway, in shoes 2 sizes too large, because her good pair had been thrown away after the basement flooded. I watched my mother look at those shopping bags, then at Brittany, and something in her expression changed. Not anger exactly, recognition. She was finally seeing the theft outside the fog of intimidation. That night, I slept on the living room sofa. Mom woke 3 times to check whether I was still there. Dad stood in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, because he did not remember he was allowed to take food without asking. I found him holding a piece of bread over the sink, eating without a plate so there would be no crumbs to explain. When he saw me, he flinched. My father, who had once lifted engines with his bare hands and taught me to calculate roof loads on napkins. Flinched because he thought he had been caught eating food in his own house. I turned away before he could see what that did to me. That was when the cost became real. Stolen money could be returned. A person trained to request permission for a sandwich needed a different kind of repair. For the first time in years, the situation was back under my control. My father looked at me with surprise and relief. My mother could barely speak. Control did not feel like power, it felt like triage. I made lists on the back of envelopes: medication, locks, bank access, food, attorney, doctor, bedding, phones. Mom sat beside me and kept whispering that she was sorry. Dad kept saying David must have gotten scared. I realized then that rescue has to move faster than denial. Their minds were still protecting the son who had harmed them, but their bodies needed clean sheets and working locks that night. And as the truth began unfolding, the confidence that had carried others for years started disappearing. Inside the house, I discovered even more signs that my parents had not been living the life I believed they had. The comfortable retirement I had worked so hard to provide existed mostly on paper. The reality was far different. That evening, I promised my parents something simple. They would never again have to worry about losing their home. They would never have to earn basic comfort, and they would never face those struggles alone. The following months brought major changes. Financial records were reviewed. The house changed in layers too. First came practical repairs: locks, lights, railings, clean mattresses, a refrigerator full enough that no one had to ask before opening it. Then came quieter repairs: Mom choosing music while she cooked, Dad leaving his cane beside the porch without hiding it, both of them arguing gently over what color to paint the guest room. Those ordinary choices felt enormous because neglect had made every preference seem like a burden. The review took 4 months and covered nearly 6 years. At first, I blamed myself for not catching it. Then the forensic accountant showed me how carefully David disguised the theft. Real medical payments were mixed with false ones. He altered digital receipts, redirected statements, and used Mom's phone to approve transfers. Each fraud was wrapped around one legitimate need, so questioning it felt like questioning my parents. The accountant pinned the timeline across a conference room wall. Blue notes marked real expenses. Red notes marked false ones. Yellow notes marked transfers that began as legitimate and then bent sideways into David's life. When I stepped back, the wall looked like a map of a war no one had admitted was happening. Brittany's cosmetic surgery appeared 3 days after Dad's hospital discharge. Linda's credit card payment appeared the same week Mom supposedly needed a specialist. David had not stolen in a rush. He had woven theft around illness so tightly that compassion became camouflage. I started bringing Mom and Dad to parts of the review once they were ready. Not to punish them with details, but because secrecy had been used against them too. Mom recognized charges from stores she had never entered. Dad identified signatures that were not his, including one on a form authorizing the sale of tools he believed had been placed in storage. Watching them reclaim facts was painful. It was also necessary. Abuse had taught them to doubt their own memory. Documentation gave some of it back. The total was more than $600,000. Numbers had always made me feel safer because they behaved. They did not change tone, deny memory, or cry in court. But that total did not feel like a number. It felt like every skipped meal, every overtime shift, every winter night I slept in socks and a coat, gathered into one brutal sum. I had not funded comfort. I had funded a cage and decorated it for the people holding the keys. David's attorney called it informal family compensation. Prosecutors called it exploitation, identity theft, and wire fraud. The difference between those descriptions was evidence: the fake caregiver company, the basement, the messages threatening institutionalization, and a spreadsheet Brittany kept calculating how quickly they could obtain full title if one parent died. Finding that spreadsheet changed Dad. He had defended David even after the account freeze. "Your brother made mistakes," he told me. "Don't let anger erase blood." Then he read the column labeled "Survivor Scenario" and stopped asking me to protect his son from consequences. At the hearing, both parents revoked David's power of attorney. The judge extended the removal order and appointed an independent financial guardian while the criminal case proceeded. David tried to catch Mom's eye. She looked at the judge instead. Her voice shook when she answered the judge, but she answered every question herself. Dad held her hand under the table. When the clerk asked whether anyone had pressured them to testify, Mom said yes, for years, but not that morning. David closed his eyes as if she had betrayed him. I wanted to shout that naming harm is not betrayal. The judge's record said it for me. He later accepted a plea requiring prison time and restitution. Brittany pleaded guilty to financial exploitation and fraud. Linda returned property purchased through the fake company and received probation with strict repayment conditions. Justice did not feel like revenge. Watching my brother led from court did not make the basement disappear. It simply told my parents, in a language stronger than family excuses, that what happened to them was real and wrong. That mattered because David still knew how to sound like my brother. He cried during allocution. He talked about pressure, debt, and being afraid to disappoint everyone. For a moment, I saw the boy who used to lift me over puddles after rainstorms. Then I remembered the spreadsheet calculating how fast our parents might die. Love and horror can occupy the same memory. Consequences exist because one of them has to govern the present. Authorities were informed where necessary. Boundaries were established. Most importantly, my parents finally received the care and peace they deserved. Boundaries sounded simple when attorneys said the word. In practice, they meant changing phone numbers, documenting every attempted contact, teaching my parents not to answer calls from relatives who wanted information for David, and asking neighbors not to repeat driveway gossip. It felt harsh until Mom slept through a whole night without waking to check the basement door. Peace needed protection before it could feel natural. We hired a licensed home care nurse named Olivia, but my parents interviewed her themselves. That mattered. The first question Dad asked was whether she believed old people should be kept busy. Olivia said everyone needed purpose, but nobody should have to earn kindness. He hired her immediately. Mom asked a different question. She wanted to know what Olivia would do if they disagreed. Olivia said she would slow down, explain the medical concern, and then remember whose life it was. My mother pressed her lips together and looked out the window for a long moment. Later she told me that answer made her feel more human than any apology David had offered. Mom chose the upstairs room facing the garden. Dad chose the smaller room because morning light reached his chair. We installed the mobility ramp that had appeared on so many fake invoices. I replaced the laundry machines and placed the old washboard on the porch as a planter. Mom filled it with red geraniums. The first week upstairs, Mom slept with the light on. Dad kept asking whether he should help with chores before breakfast. Olivia made a list of tasks he could choose from, not because the house needed labor, but because dignity needed somewhere to stand. Watering plants, sorting mail, calling the pharmacy himself. Small choices became a kind of physical therapy for the spirit. I moved to Georgia for 6 months and ran my work remotely. For the first time in years, I slept in a room with heat and bought groceries without calculating which bill the money could cover. Mom watched me one afternoon and said their retirement had not been worth my disappearing from my own life. I thought sacrifice proved I loved you, I said. Being here proves it too, she answered. That conversation changed how we handled money. I stopped sending blind monthly transfers. We created a budget everyone could see, paid providers directly, and held family meetings where Mom and Dad made the final choices. Protection without autonomy would only have been a kinder version of control. The first family meeting was awkward. Dad apologized before asking to buy a new chair. Mom asked whether blueberries were too expensive. I pushed the budget sheet toward them and made myself stay quiet. They had spent too long asking permission. I had spent too long confusing rescue with management. Healing required all of us to practice a different kind of trust, one where love made room for choice. 8 months later, the farmhouse felt completely different. Dad spent his mornings tending flowers instead of exhausting himself. Mom baked in a renovated kitchen and smiled more than she had in years. The first pie she made after moving upstairs burned at the edges because she forgot how fast the new oven ran. She apologized 3 times before any of us tasted it. Dad ate 2 slices and said burnt crust was proof nobody was afraid of wasting flour anymore. Mom laughed so hard she had to sit down. And that laugh did more for the room than any renovation had. The porch that once represented disappointment became a place of healing. We started eating breakfast there. At first, Mom sat with her back to the wall so no one could come up behind her. Dad watched the driveway whenever a truck slowed down. Healing did not make them instantly brave. It made the mornings repeat without punishment until their bodies believed the difference. One day, Mom asked if we could invite Aunt Marianne for coffee. That was when I knew the porch had begun changing sides. On Dad's 75th birthday, Aunt Marianne came with a cake. She brought old photographs too, the kind my mother had not seen since before the basement. We spread them across the porch table, after guests left Mom in a yellow dress at 20, Dad holding David as a baby, me missing 2 front teeth. Memory had been narrowed by fear for so long that even pictures felt like windows opening. Neighbors filled the yard. Olivia placed a chair near the flowers, but Dad spent most of the afternoon standing because he wanted to greet every guest himself. Brittany had once told me the neighbors rarely visited because my parents preferred privacy. The truth was uglier. She had turned people away, saying Dad was fragile and Mom became confused around company. That birthday proved how many doors had been closed from the inside by someone else. People arrived with casseroles, stories, and anger they tried not to show. Dad accepted every hug like it was evidence he had not vanished completely. Near sunset, he asked me to walk to the south fence. The repair Brittany once shouted about had been finished by a local carpenter. Dad ran his hand across the smooth rail. I kept thinking if I worked hard enough, they would let your mother stay upstairs, he said. That confession came out so softly I almost missed it. He was not talking about a fence anymore. He was talking about the bargain they had forced him to make with his own body. Work harder. Complain less. Be grateful for scraps of comfort purchased with your daughter's money. My father's pride had survived decades of labor, medical scares, and raising children on little sleep. What nearly broke it was being made to believe rest had to be earned from people stealing the price of it. I told him he never had to bargain for his own home again. He looked toward the porch, where Mom was laughing with her sister. You gave us this place twice, he said. The first time with money. The second time by seeing what we were afraid to tell you. I had spent months wishing I arrived sooner. His words did not erase that regret, but they gave it somewhere useful to go. Regret is heavy when it has nowhere to work. I could not return the 6 years. I could not unteach my father fear, or give my mother back the nights she cried quietly in the basement. But I could build systems that did not depend on my brother's honesty. I could answer the phone. I could fly down without announcing myself. I could believe discomfort sooner the next time it whispered. Looking back, I realized the hardest lesson was also the most important one. Family is not defined by who shares your last name. It is defined by who protects, respects, and supports one another when it matters most. I used to think protecting family meant absorbing the cost quietly. David used that belief like a spare key. Now I understand protection also means refusing to let harm hide behind familiar faces. It means asking for receipts. It means believing the tremor in your father's voice. It means showing up before you know exactly what you will find, because not knowing is sometimes the last shelter a lie has left. And sometimes, reclaiming your peace begins the moment you stop allowing others to take advantage of your kindness. Kindness had always been easy for me to understand. Boundaries were harder, but kindness without boundaries had paid for Brittany's comfort while my parents slept near a furnace. I had to learn that protection can sound firm and still be love. Especially when the people being protected have forgotten they are allowed to want anything at all. I worked 6 years to buy my parents a house. What finally made it a home was the day no one inside had to earn the right to rest. That rest became the measure I trusted most. Every quiet afternoon on that porch reminded me that comfort is not a luxury when someone has been denied it long enough. It is repair. I used to measure love by how much I could carry. Now I measure it by whether the people I love are allowed to put things down. That change saved more than my parents' house. It saved the part of me that had mistaken depletion for proof. I still work hard, but I no longer confuse exhaustion with devotion. Love can pay a bill. It can also ask to see the receipt. The difference matters. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video with them. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.